Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Kolkata-based strategic think tank Ceners-K, which stands for Research Center for Eastern and Northeastern Regional Studies, Kolkata, I extend a very warm welcome to the Honorable Governor of West Bengal, Shri Jagdeep Dhankar, to the first Shri Ranjit Kumar Datta Memorial Address on Center-State Relations. I am very happy to mention that amongst us today, during this address, we have the presence of many distinguished personalities from various walks of life and professions, including esteemed members from a number of strategic think tanks of India, members of various chambers of commerce, clubs of distinguished credentials, as also, I would say, the members of the faculties and students of various universities in Eastern and Northeastern region. We are also happy that we have representatives of Oil India Limited and Numaligarh Refineries Limited attending this event. These are the two institutions in the oil sector, especially in the Northeastern region, with which Mr. Ranjit Kumar Datta was very deeply involved for many years. So, Sri late R.K. Datta, Ranjit Kumar Datta, actually passed away last year. He has been a pioneer of the oil industry in India, as also an icon of the Northeastern region. He had served as a CMD of Oil India Limited, as also MD of Numaligarh Refineries Limited. He was instrumental in bringing up these, oil industry in the Northeastern region. And I think he has been a life member of Ceners-K, the strategic think tank. Basically, he was, there in Calcutta most of the time, and he contributed immensely in organizing various seminars on subjects related to Northeastern region, also carrying out, I would say, research on various issues contemporary to the Northeastern region. He had organized these, I would say, seminars in most of the state capitals of Northeastern region, because he knew that region so very well, and we could really connect. And the Ceners-K would really actually had flourished because of his contributions. So I think the Ceners-K has done right in trying to honor the memory and cherish the memories and contributions of Shri Ranjit Kumar Datta by instituting this annual memorial lecture. And we are very happy and we feel very privileged that the Honorable Governor of West Bengal has kindly consented to deliver the first address today. I think Honorable Shri Dhankar needs no introduction to any one of us, but still I would briefly highlight the milestones in his illustrious career. Now, he has been one of the best known legal practitioners in India. He has been a senior advocate in Rajasthan state and practiced in Supreme Court as well since 1990s, till he was appointed as the Governor of West Bengal in July 2019, which is almost 2 years and 8 months now. He has been a brilliant student, an alumnus of Sainik School Chittorgarh in Rajasthan, and I think he has a very soft corner for all Sainik School alumni and students, and I think I am one of those beneficiaries. He has been practicing in Supreme Court since 1990, and his focus areas were coal, steel, mines, and international commercial arbitration. He has been an MLA and an MP in the Lok Sabha from Rajasthan and a Minister of State at the central government for some time. He takes keen interest in cooperative movement, agriculture, and fine arts. A versatile personality indeed. We are proud to have Honorable Jagdeep Dhankar amongst us today. As far as the subject of the address is concerned, center-state relations have been occupying the minds of all thinkers and leaders in this country for some time. The Constitution of Indian Republic is unique because it is a product not of a political revolution, but the research and deliberations of a body of eminent visionary Indian leaders immediately post independence who sought to improve upon the existing system of governance, which was the legacy of the British rule. The constitutional system of India is basically federal in nature, but with bold unitary features. The main characteristics of governance as provisioned in our constitution, I shall briefly cover them, just 5 points. Firstly, we have dual governments, one national and other the state governments. Second, distribution of powers. With two sets of governments, we need distribution of power that is so that there is no friction. So these distribution of powers have been achieved in the constitution through union list, state list, and concurrent list. Of course, in the concurrent list, obviously there are areas where friction could take place, and that is why supremacy of the constitution, that is the executive, legislative, or judicial powers of the union and the states are subordinate to the constitutional provisions. Fourthly, the authority of the courts. If there is a dispute or a conflict or a friction, then interpretation would be by the courts, that is Supreme Court basically, and that has to be abided by all parties concerned. And fifthly, conferring of extraordinary powers to the central government in three contingencies. Firstly, during a war or a conflict, external aggression. Second, failure of constitutional machinery, which has happened quite a few times in the past, and a lot of state governments were dethroned, I would say, or dismissed. And lastly, financial emergency. So let me now come to the problem now. The crux of the problem is there is friction, competition, disagreements, politically or otherwise, and which are signs of a vibrant democracy that India is. But in recent times, many simmering friction between center and states have blown into major conflicts, calling for frequent judicial intervention. With the rise of strong political parties in the regions or regional parties in several states, these conflicts have further intensified and accentuated. Contestation on the jurisdiction of central agencies like the CBI, ED, income tax authorities, and toppling of the state governments from time to time are matters which have brought the federal structure under tremendous strain. India is currently faced with innumerable challenges in the economic, industrial, and social fields. Problems like removal of poverty, unemployment, lack of healthcare and education infrastructure, as also the countering of external threats, terrorism, insurgencies need actually immediate attention of both central and state governments, central or national and regional political parties as well. It is therefore imperative that our federal system must function smoothly and seamlessly with much improved center state relations. I'll stop here, and before I request the Honorable Governor to deliver the address, I'll say that at the end of the address, there would be a question answer session, and the Honorable Governor has kindly consented to sort of respond to those questions put in by the participants in this address. I would request any questions from any member to be put in the chat box so that we could sort of group them into 3-4 questions, which I will be putting across to the Honorable Governor for his response. And at the end of that session, the concluding remarks and the vote of thanks would be delivered by our Vice President, Lieutenant General J.R. Mukherjee. I will now request the Honorable Governor Sri Jagdeep Dhankar to deliver the address. Thank you. Sir.
My greetings to everyone. I am grateful to the Center for Eastern and Northeastern Regional Studies, Kolkata, for affording me this great opportunity. The center, I am sure, bound to emerge as a very important think tank and a fact tank, and that would help this area in particular fall in line with development streak of the country. And that is why 7 years ago, the Honorable Prime Minister focused, look east, act east. The kind of resource the center has, the kind of involvement it has, and I have personally known the president of the center. I am sure everyone will contribute massively to this incremental trajectory. Well, this subject is very significant, of contemporary relevance, occupying minds of everyone in every walk of life. Center-state relations. As Governor State of West Bengal, I find myself in the hot seat. The role of the governor also becomes very critical, significant, and sometimes decisive in charting this delicate path of state-center relations. I would therefore not focus much on the legality of it. Rup Rasa has taken us through the legal aspects at a macro level, and those are in the know of everyone. I would give primacy to the questions that will come forward so that I can respond on them. But I would put certain things in perspective. If we go to two basic aspects, Article 1 defines India, that is Bharat, is union of states. We have to see a great meaning into it. Union cannot exist unless there are states. And states have to be powerful, but they have to contribute to the spinal strength of the union. That is the essence and spirit of the Constitution. Towards that, what we require basically is there has to be harmony, there has to be trust, there has to be dialogue, there has to be deliberation. And if these things do not periodically happen, then the relationship between central and state gets somewhat into shady area, which is not wholesome for democratic process. Two very important developments have taken place in 7 years, and they give lot of impetus to the strength of Indian Union and power of the states. I would focus primarily first when GST was brought about, virtually in the same fashion as Tryst at Midnight, is a huge development, a development that generates a great partnership between central and states. And it has so successfully worked that all decisions are taken unanimously. This is a rare example on a global horizon, a very significant revolutionary step that creates a very strong bondage between the center and the states. The second is Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog is just not a variation in the name. Niti Aayog took place of Planning Commission. In Planning Commission, since I had the occasion to be part of the government 30 years ago as a union minister, in Planning Commission at that point of time, there was primacy to the center. But in Niti Aayog, there is collaborative approach between the center and the states. These two significant aspects have taken place. A great impetus was given by the present leadership at Delhi when we talked of cooperative federalism. And I would give a quote of the Honorable Prime Minister. Quote, Federation is no longer the fault line of central-state relations, but the definition of a new partnership of Team India, unquote. Now we have to focus on the ground reality. And the ground reality at the moment is that center and states are having a relationship which is cause of worry for those who subscribe to the concept of democracy and nationalism. That is a stark reality we all are facing. And in the entire scheme of things, the governor of a state has become a punching bag. And the governor becomes a punching bag more when he is governor of a state where the ruling party is not the same as in the center. I happen to be in that category. And therefore, I would invite attention particularly as to the oath of office which we take. If we go to the constitutional functionaries who are primarily involved in functioning central-state relations, that is, the Honorable Prime Minister, the Honorable Chief Ministers of States, the Honorable President, and the respective governors. So, Honorable Prime Minister and Chief Ministers, they take one oath, will owe allegiance to the Constitution of India. So, it is very specific that these high constitutional functionaries who get their position by mandate of the elected, they work under one constraint, that they will dictate all their actions by adherence to constitutional norms and prescriptions. They will owe allegiance to it. As against this, if we focus on the oath of office which the Honorable President or the Governor takes, it's very different. The oath is to preserve, protect, and defend Constitution. So, role of the governor that is very critical in central-state relations is that whenever you find there is constitutional transgression, where rule of law is not being followed, he steps in. Exactly at that point of time, an issue is raised in high decibel that the governor is nominated, the governor is an agent of a political party, the governor is carrying out political activity. It is at that point of time when the governor who takes his dictates only from the law, from Indian Constitution, does not get support from the intelligentsia. I'm spelling out my heart because I'll take all questions. Someone has to point out to a particular governor that if you are engaged in your social duty, if you are vindicating your constitutional oath, and you are red flagging every step of the state where there is transgression of a constitutional prescription or provision, then the cream of society has to analyze it, be judgmental about it, and then speak out its mind. I can say with my experience over 2.5 years here that I have tried very hard in every forum, having been interviewed in public domain by half a dozen news channels. Would anyone point out a single instance where I have gone beyond constitutional prescription or there is a constitutional transgression? Not that I cannot have, any governor can have, any individual can have. One is liable to correction. But since I am at the fulcrum of central-state relations, it is fundamental for me to know from the people also, am I on the right path? And so far, and I am addressing the audience here also, please indicate a single instance of constitutional transgression so that I can be on a correctional path. I have done it. But look at the other scenario, which not only this governor, but other governors are facing. And facing why? Because in this battle between central and states, which has lot many political contours, which has clash of personalities, the focal point becomes the governor, as in the case of state of West Bengal. Now, central-state relations have to be measured in terms of adherence of constitutional duties by the respective chief ministers or the governor. I will spell out. The Constitution has very carefully, under Article 167, used the word constitutional duty of a chief minister towards the governor in the matter of, there are several issues. One is imparting information as the governor may seek. For over 2.5 years, I have tried everything patiently. I have persevered. Not a single information has been imparted, which is absolutely a serious reflection on central-state relations. Now, what do we do? Our framers of our constitution were very wise people. They never contemplated that high constitutional functionaries like the governor and the chief minister will conduct themselves in such a manner that they will not be collaborating, they will not be discussing, they will not engage in dialogue, they will not engage in deliberations, they will not address issues jointly, and they will be at war with each other. This scenario was never known. Therefore, there is a dead end. If a chief minister, as in this case, does not discharge a constitutional duty and determinedly does not do it, and does not do it for over 2.5 years, what is the way out? Dead end. Secondly, if there is a governor who similarly does not lend affirmative stance to the working of the government, then what is the way out for the chief minister? I would therefore strongly appeal that in such kind of a scenario where we are in a binding situation, it is the intelligentsia that must step in. And that I say, why? Because high constitutional functionaries are expected to pay great obeisance to constitutional norms, ethics, spirit. They have to understand the underlying concept. I do not wish to reflect on individuals here. But one thing I would say for sure, that final aspect has to be seen. What has somewhat concerned me is that very intelligent people for whom I have enormous respect, and the place where I'm the governor, their number is really large as compared to other parts of the country. They are certainly not alive to certain hard realities of constitutional working. Let me put it this way. Indian constitution was amended, and Indian constitution was amended in 70s, where there was a specific provision that the honorable president will be bound by the advice of the council of ministers. The president of the country cannot deviate from the advice imparted by the council of ministers. And the only deviation he can do is send the recommendation that comes to him for reconsideration once and then go by that. As against this, and there is a huge confusion, as if the governor is invariably bound by the council of ministers. I say with utmost respect, utmost restraint, there is qualitative distinction between the two. But the president is 100% bound by the advice tendered by the Council of Ministers, that is not applicable for the governor. For the governor, there are two distinct areas. One, there will be Council of Ministers to aid and advise the governor. And then he has areas where he has his discretion, where the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers does not come into play. But irrespective of that, a person who occupies the post of governor, a hot seat in the present scenario, there is greater onus on this office to see that democracy functions. I take it that it is primarily obligation and responsibility of the governor to be shoulder to shoulder with the state government. It is the governor who must discharge his obligation to ensure that if there are any issues which the state has with the center, then he must do all he possibly can to bring about some kind of collaboration, some kind of synergy, some kind of seamless working between the two. In my case, and I am saying so with utmost restraint, all my efforts to find out from the state government, do we have an issue with the central government? I am first citizen. I am first servant of the state. I am a loyal soldier of the people. My oath cast an obligation on me to serve the people of the state of West Bengal. I'll be side by side. Not one has come. Therefore, the real and crux of the matter is that center-state relations have got so politicized, so compartmentalized. The respective politicians involved at the helm of affairs, the rigidity is so strong. There is no flexibility. There is no amenability. And that is causing great problem. Now, whenever there is strain between the center and state, suffering is of the people at large. For example, there are large number of schemes of the central government. They have fiscal dimension. And the fiscal dimension is a huge dimension. And that is relatable to the welfare of the people. Now, if the refrain is confrontational stance, then the benefit does not accrue to the people at large. Be it PM Kisan Yojana, be it in the health sector, or be it a situation like aspirational districts. Now, confrontational stance either side, whether it is at the level of center or at the level of a state, was never conceived by the framers of the Constitution. I'll give you one illustration. A matter came before the Honorable Supreme Court that a time limit should be prescribed for the Honorable President to decide mercy petitions, because mercy petitions were remaining pending for a long time. I still recollect the Honorable Supreme Court made a reflection. Great confidence has been reposed in high constitutional functionaries by the framers of the Constitution. Let us not put them in a straitjacket. Similarly, great confidence has been reposed in the position of the governor and chief minister. And the two positions are very critical to operationalization in wholesome fashion of central-state relations. But going by the things that we have today, I would strongly give out my mind. We need a refresher course. We really need a refresher course so that we learn to engage in constructive activities, in deliberations, in dialogue, so that the larger public welfare is furthered. Center-state relations have little more critical angle, to which the president of the center will be more alive than myself and most of you who are drawn from fields that have strategic concerns. If in border states like state of West Bengal, the relations are not in the best of spirit, then we are rendering high vulnerability to the security of the nation. So there is no escape from having at least minimum level of central-state relationship that must be observed under all circumstances. Over 2.5 years, I have found certain areas where, since the framers of the Constitution did not have in their contemplation that such a situation can arise, there is a dead end. Now, if the governance in a state is not as per constitutional prescriptions, what is the way out? Arup Sahab has indicated that there are certain interventions which can take place. Now, those interventions are very harsh. Our democracy does not survive when we negate the verdict of the people. Negation of the verdict of the people is an extreme step that must be avoided to the extent it can be avoided. But other areas are not left. So we develop what is known as incommunicado area, as we have in the state of West Bengal. I have not made this lecture a routine one because I know the questions I will get would ultimately reveal the mindset, either side. So I would urge the president that floor may be open for questions, and I would happily take all questions, most inconvenient ones, but I would urge one particularly request. Please put your first servant in the dock. He has been in the hot seat for 2.5 years. We need to show him mirror that he has engaged in which constitutional transgression. Because I am not a punching bag. A punching bag has certain relieving features. I am not a punching bag. I must be on that. Imagine I am being called Raj Bhavan Raja. I am being called corrupt. I am being subjected to all kinds of abuses. I wish to know from these honorable gentlemen, would you please concretize, give some fact situation so that my conscience may revolt. I may be on the right path. I have tried my best earnestly to secure it. I am sure there will be tough questions. I would do my utmost to respond.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir, for your address. And now I'll request, if there are any questions from anyone.
I'd like to come in. Yes.
Yeah. Professor Mukherjee, yes, please go ahead.
Yes. Your Excellency, I think your deliberation was wonderful, and it was straight from the heart. And I need to say that everyone in Bengal would appreciate your plain talking. But my question is, we are in a dead-end situation where you have this kind of a stalemate, primarily because the Constitution does not allow the rule of anyone. If there's a clash between, let's say, the Council of Governors, the Chief Minister, and the Governor, what changes would you recommend in the Constitution to see that the people of the state do not suffer? And there is one alternative: we can do away with the role of the governor. The other is to see that the governor functions in such a way that it acts as a mentor to see that the country, the state proceeds in lines that are desirable for the people's interest, which I presume you're doing. But if people, if the government in power do not want to hear that, and they see you as a representative of the central government, towing a party line rather than the state line, what corrections in the constitution do you think is warranted to see that this imbroglio does not continue in future?
I am beholden, Professor Mukherjee. It's a very loaded question and a very difficult one. Yesterday morning, I had the occasion to go through Hindu newspaper, and therein we had an article where reflections were imparted by former Governor Gopal Krishna Gandhi. And his one observation was, I quote, in Bengal, where he had been the governor, quote, in Bengal, the governor and the chief minister could have shown their perspectives both to each other and to the people of the state in a manner in which the two offices would not have been diminished, unquote. I was deeply hurt. I was very deeply hurt. I would be writing to him also. I must be pointed out because I claim scrupulous, constant, continual adherence to constitutional prescriptions. And I have been saying governance in the state of West Bengal is far distanced from constitutional norms and rule of law. As governor, I feel that the fear quotient in the people is so intense that out of fear, they are unable to talk about fear. Therefore, always harping on one situation, that the governor is nominated, the chief minister elected. This narrative must end. As long as Constitution has provision for a governor, in whatever manner it has, number one. Number two, for last several decades, the issue has been addressed. Because if a governor becomes a pain in the neck of the ruling party, or if a governor creates hurdles, that is most unwholesome, counterproductive, and generates an environment that does not serve the people at all. But if it is done as a matter of policy, as in the state of West Bengal, I tell you, 2.5 years, what have I seen? Confrontation, deliberate confrontation of a degree unknown to any civility, any constitutional working. Imagine, I was personally present, Prime Minister of the country, coming here to deal with a disaster management situation, and all the seats are vacant. There has to be way out. So it is time that rising above partisan interests, there should be a good focus by the concerned so that there is primarily improvement in the situation. We have had two governors' conference. I was part of both. When in one conference, my lamentable situation was sought to be reflected by the other governor, I have enormous respect for the governor. I said, please don't do it. I will deal with my chief minister in the manner I feel appropriate. I will not yield to a situation where someone will raise the grievance. And I talked to the Honorable Chief Minister that whatever you want me to put in the governor's conference, I am your extension. I am your part. She sent me a brief note, which could have been more comprehensive, did not focus on any issue which is focusing in public domain, but I read out it as such. So what I suggest, let me tell you, and it's a very good question Professor Mukherjee asked, let there be annual conference of governors and chief ministers.
Yeah.
If governors and chief ministers have annual conference, then I am sure lot many things will be thrashed out. We have such mechanism with respect to other constitutional institutions. This needs to be there. Otherwise, we are in a dicey situation. Every time I get a communication, someone wants to give me a lecture on Sarkaria Commission. Now, I know it. Can I advert to Sarkaria Commission till it gets a legal framework? The legal framework, the legal regime governing the governor's conduct is given in the Constitution. I cannot go beyond that. But that's what I get every day, even in official communications from the government. I'll give you one illustration. Today has been a very bad day for me. The government sent me a recommendation, prorogue the assembly. I prorogued the assembly. Channels took it. Governor has restored budget session. Governor has restored budget session because some step was taken against him in the Rajya Sabha. I had to issue another tweet. I have done it because government wanted it. So people tell me very often, and some of them do it legitimately, that why do you take to Twitter? I tell them two things. One, I need to impart information. Number two, point out a single tweet which lacks in decorum, lacks in constitutionalism, lacks in legality. And I'm sharing with you because I am before people who are in sublime intelligent category of the society. I don't do it for drop of a hat. I don't do it out of choice. I do it out of compulsion. If today I said I have acted on behalf of the government, if I were not doing it, the channels would be showing day in and day out. The governor has restored the budget session. So an impression will automatically go. Who is this rogue in Raj Bhavan who is stealing the budget session? So I have to clear the air at the earliest occasion. So I would only, one suggestion has come to me ad hoc. We can get into greater depth of it. Regular interaction by way of national conference between governors and chief ministers.
Thank you for that. I think we can proceed on that line, but I don't know how.
Sir, I have a question, sir. So in the meantime, most probably Dr. Chatterjee on line. Before that, sir, our constitution is one of the best constitutions in the world, and it has three important pillars, main strengths: executive, legislature, and judiciary, all in different compartments, working in their own way to ensure that our republic remains a republic and we are governed well. But in the recent times, I think there has been a lot of problems in, I think, legislature. We have far too many criminals as MPs, MLAs, leaders, whatever it is. And we have very few statesmen in the country. The main problems of the center-state relations and other things is perhaps, not having good people, not having mature people. And toward this, I think that we require institutions which have been created by the Constitution, like the CEC, CIC, CAG, and so many others, that they have to be very, very strong. So unless we can prevent criminals entering politics, criminals making politics as a profession, unless we can straighten out the backbone of the police and the IAS, I think this, the governance in the country will suffer, and whatever the experts, the visionaries who set up this constitution for the country would have lost out in terms of the goals they're achieving. So I would like your interpretation or your suggestions as to how do we decriminalize politics? How do you straighten out the backs of the police and the IAS people, the people who govern the country? So, your remarks, kindly, sir.
Well, the greatest challenge to governance gets heightened when bureaucracy is politicized. And in the political arena, we get people with criminal background. And if coupling takes place, rule of law goes on a tangential route. I wish to make one point very clear that with respect to the antecedents of a candidate who can contest an election, there is need to have a relook. Let me tell you, sir, though it's a very good question, and people normally talk in terms of statistics. Right now, we are having elections to 5 states, and we talk very freely with respect to this political party. So many criminals have been fielded. Now, one thing is, if they can contest election because you have a legal regime which affords them eligibility to contest election, then why don't you focus on that? You get my point? Simply going by the statistics that in a particular election, this political party has put in so many people with antecedents that are of a criminal nature. Nonetheless, the law of the land allows them to contest. So the issue has to be addressed squarely. An issue has to be addressed squarely from the perspective of law. That's number one. Number two, bureaucracy is no longer steel frame. I have gone on record in the state of West Bengal because of inputs to me by the top bureaucrats in administration and police. And what they tell me, I will take to my maker only. But one thing is very clear. The bureaucracy has become an extension of ruling dispensation, irrespective of who is in political seat. If A is there, they are extension of A. If B is there, they are extension of B. And this is a very great threat to democratic fabric. So on the first point, my suggestion is the lawmakers have to address, because the returning officer will never allow a candidature to be valid unless it is in accordance with law. Once the returning officer allows a candidate to contest, then to reflect on his antecedents is just for consumption. So that issue has to be addressed as a core issue. Then we have to examine the scenario in other developed democratic nations also. For example, you rightly talked about the 3 wings. Now, incursion by one wing into the domain of the other is a very serious matter. And if the incursion takes place, let's say, by legislature into judiciary, or judiciary into executive, or executive into legislature, that is not acceptable. We faced one of the greatest problems, COVID. But US, claiming to be robust health sector, claiming a very robust health sector. Manhattan, we have seen what happened. We have seen what happened in the corridors of London hospitals. But I was wonderstruck. No court in the US, no court in UK, no court in Europe reflected on the situation. They allowed executive to handle it. Now, I'm not saying what our courts have done is right or wrong. All I'm saying that there has to be a scrupulous belief in the doctrine of separation of powers. An incursion by one wing into the domain of the other will be antithetical to constitutional essence. But if that incursion is a little more invasive, that will threaten the very citadel of our democracy. So what is required is a real brainstorming by all concerned at the highest level in the affairs of governance, so that there can be convergence of views and we are in a position to contribute to the growth of this great nation, which at the moment is on the rise.
Thank you, sir. Sir, Shashank Chatterjee.
Yeah. Can
yeah,
you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Please go ahead with the
Yeah.
question.
Thank you very much. Governor sir, Honorable Governor sir, I am very happy that you are the governor of our state. I, being an alumni of a Ceners school, I am very proud of you. Now, in your speech, which has been an excellent one, I heard you saying that the intelligentsia should step in. I would precisely like a roadmap which you propose for intelligentsia, how they should step in the current situation.
This is very close to my heart because the state of West Bengal abounds in intelligentsia. And I love to interact with the people. And they come with enormously talented ideas. They are very innovative. During COVID, I found from all over the world, they were contributing in their own way, effectively. But when it comes to democratic part of it, they are in silence zone. I have repeatedly stressed out of my heart, if the silent majority continues to be silent, it will be silenced forever. In state of West Bengal, we have three fundamental problems we need to overcome. One, we must acknowledge what is an open secret, that people here are in deep fear. They cannot express themselves as they should be doing in a democratic nation. This is not a small issue. I have seen people talking to me one-to-one. And when the same people come in a group, their indications to me are very different. I know it. 10 bricks and half a bag of cement, people can't buy out of their own volition. And silence of the intelligentsia is very eloquent. Why intelligentsia does not focus? Let me put it. We had most unprecedented barbaric violence after the polls. I personally visited the state 13th May, 14th May, 15th May. I have seen arson, loot, vandalism, killings, rape. No one talked about it. Till the court intervened, a committee was formed, and the committee said, in Bengal, we have rule of the ruler, not of law. I don't want to get into the political plane. I have discussed with the Honorable Chief Minister. You are lucky to be elected for a third term. Third term has come to you with a mandate. It is time to introspect, soul search. If you would recollect, I took the extraordinary step when I administered oath to her. And we both were together. I said, all is well. That can't happen. We are having polls in 5 states. Do we hear of any killing, any violence? And we have local polls here today also. I cannot share what I'm getting. Candidates are being locked. Videos are being sent to me. So now democracy, a sense, is being compromised, and silence of the intelligentsia. So, sir, I would suggest intelligentsia needs to voice its concerns fearlessly, that I do not find at the moment happening. I hope it happens.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Unfortunately, yes.
Is there anybody else who has a question? Johnny, say anything, sir?
I have a question, sir. There are a lot of people, particularly from the opposition ruled states, who claim that federalism of the constitution is in danger because their powers are being usurped by the center. May I have your comments?
Well, sir, undoubtedly, this issue has occupied a lot of space, and there have been joint representations also. I have carefully gone through it, very, very carefully gone through it. While autonomy of the state, to the extent it is afforded by the Constitution, must be very sacred. But the challenge which the states are leveling against the center has to be analyzed on constitutional premise. Let me take the case of services. A recent change which has been made is a cause of major controversy between states and the center, and all kinds of statements are being issued. I have examined it from the perspective of the state where I am the first citizen. Now, central government does not have IAS and IPS of its own. Am I clear, sir? Central government does not have IAS and IPS of its own. It gets IAS and IPS from the states. If states do not respond and do not contribute in the measure they should, then, as Dicey said, a great jurist long back, that if there is a right, there has to be a remedy. So if it is right in law of the center to have from the state pool a specified number of the officials, and they don't come. Now, if this is to be taken as a point of strain between center and state, I, for one, with great respect, would not go for it. The other issues which are regularly raised is that the center is not able to give funds which are due to a state. And this is an issue which is being primarily raised by the state of West Bengal. On numerous occasions, in writing and otherwise, as a first servant of the state, I have written to the government, indicate to me that this is the amount the central government has to pay to the state. And I would be a foot soldier of the state. But if it is only for optics, then the issue will be very different. But it's a very, very important point. And again, for that, I would urge, we have several mechanisms. For example, we have national bodies where the chief ministers are party. They should be deliberating on it. But sir, let me share my anguish with you. And let me share my real concern. If you look to the social media of very intelligent people, you will find one thing there. Rationale is missing. That should not be happening. But sir, it was a very tough question. And as I suggested, that a conference of governors and chief ministers should be there. The people at the helm have to rise above political partisan interests to address the issues from national perspective, so that larger welfare of the people takes place. Now, for a variety of reasons, because of compulsive situations, that is something which is not happening.
Sir, Thank you, sir. And anyone else who would like to ask a question? So I have one simple observation. I would request your remarks on that. So we have the Constitution has provided for legislative councils in the states, like we have Rajya Sabha. We similarly have legislative councils in the state. Many of the states have done away with it, and many say they do not require it, and in the process of doing so. So, what is the significance? What are the thought behind the framers of the Constitution about having an upper chamber, legislative council in the states? Why is it being discarded? And is there a constitutional provision to negate such actions by the individual states?
Roopji, if you will see it, we have a Council of States, which we call as Rajya Sabha. And Council of States is permanent, unlike Lok Sabha. Lok Sabha may not be in existence at a particular point of time, but a Council of States will be there. Several states have their own councils. And there is a provision whenever we go to any state provision, let's say including the legislature composition under Article 168, then they will say it consists of the governor, then the house, and then the council. Our state of West Bengal is a fairly large state, had this council till late 60s, and it was abolished. Few months back, a resolution has been passed by the West Bengal Legislative Assembly. Again, I come to the same situation, my anguish and pain. I have done all I could possibly to get a copy of that resolution. Your governor has not been able to get it. My purpose was very clear. Council would mean talented people, people with experience, people who can bring something on the table, who do not wish to face the electorate, not because they fear the electorate, but because by their academics, by their position, by their exposure, by their inclination, by their attitude, they do not wish to get into that electoral competition. We'll find position. We have had, let's say, state of Uttar Pradesh, 3 distinguished chief ministers. Mayawati ji was in the council. Yogi ji, before this election, was in council. Akhilesh ji was in council. So council, according to me, is utilization of talented human resource for welfare of a state, and limitation is there. A small state can't have a council, understandably, which cannot, but our state qualifies to that situation. I am personally handicapped because all my efforts to get a copy of the resolution have so far been frustrated.
Sir, I have one more issue, sir. I had asked you previously about legislature, its status or its capacity, capability, intellectual capability, I would say, is actually diminishing, be it at the center, be it at the state, because of criminalization of politics. So as a result, we are not getting the best of the people getting into politics. We are not getting the best of the brains to work for the government of the country or the states. So can we strengthen? You mentioned about that something basic has to be done with regards to the law, etc., etc. But the CEC, Chief Election Commissioner, is a constitutional institution. I think he could be given more powers to declare individuals with such records to be disqualified. And if a party feels such a large number of people criminals as politicians contesting election, the whole party should be disqualified. Like Mr. Session had done, I think he had done a wonderful job, to my mind, to rein in the erring political parties. But can such legislation be done, or can such powers be given to the CEC to rectify the situation?
It's a very significant point. Article 324 of the Constitution gives enormous power to the election commission. And during the relevant time, election commission is in all command. And it has shown its spine also. And our elections have high credibility. But look at a scenario. If distinguished people like you wish to contest an election, and there becomes a legal regime that you must not have an FIR against you, you will get 20 FIRs. And in the state of West Bengal, everyone will get. You can have it from me. My heart bleeds. I have sleepless nights when I find that people are involved in NDPS cases with minimum 10 years rigorous imprisonment, drop of a hat. So what has to be done is the governance in the country and state has to rise like a plateau, which means politician has to be reformed, bureaucracy has to be reformed, judiciary has also to its job. Only then, trust me, have a legal regime, the best candidate will not be able to contest an election, because that will happen here. You see what has happened in last 2 days. I am absolutely in deep pain. What I have revealed to the people at large is only tip of the iceberg. When I say I am difficult to fight with a person who concludes the state of West Bengal is a gas chamber of democracy. It is difficult for me to give counterpoint to a person who says it is a laboratory of violation and decimation of human rights, having seen with my own eyes. It is den of corruption. If a statutory audit which is required to take place every year has not taken place for 10 years, if diversion of funds can be ruled, no one raises an issue. Therefore, I was saying what has happened to intelligentsia. I raise issues. I know their knives are out. They will troll me. They will hold press conferences. But I will not deviate from basic issues. Diversion of funds is culpable. And that culpability has taken place here extensively. Look at the kind of recruitment scams are here. I am moderating myself. I am not indicating the real part of it. My heart bleeds and I'm talking to the people I'm seeing on the screen also. Sir, people get into IS, people get into IPS through toughest of examination. It is not patronage. And imagine these young boys and girls are unable to get post of district magistrate, a post of SP. Can you imagine what they would be having? And here we have rampantly. Secondly, why I say about intelligentsia? Sir, imagine Kalimpong is a district with one constituency. And the two Parganas have MLAs more than 30 each. All over the country, we have a mechanism. Why I am pleading with intelligentsia? All over the country, we have a mechanism that there will be a district. In the district, there will be a district magistrate, there will be district SP, and there will be a district judge. Here, go to say North or South Parganas. There will be one district magistrate, there will be 3 SPs, and 2 commissioners. So basic issues are not being addressed at all. The state is getting into dole culture and with no sense of accountability. Means whenever I look to anything at all, there are no answers at all. For example, is the governor wrong when it says that during pandemic purchase, the chief minister on her own ordered inquiry into the 2,000 crore scam? She found loopholes, irregularities. She appointed a committee high-powered. The then Home Secretary Alapan Bandyopadhyay, the present Chief Secretary was its member. I am unable to get his report. Therefore, right now the greatest challenge in center-state relations is, can a state be a state within a state? Can a state be law unto itself? Can a state have that kind of sovereignty which the Constitution does not give it? And that is what I see every day. So a difficult challenge, sir. This challenge can be overcome and the greatest benefit will go to the people. For example, I go to Bengali homes. I love the food. I love the interaction. I find where is the youngster? They say outside. There is no prestigious global institute in the world where a Bengali mind is not contributing. No institute, sir. But there was a time when people used to flock. Human resource was attracted to Kolkata City of Joy and state of West Bengal. Capital was attracted for industry, trade, business, healthcare, education, tourism. And now a train goes to Vellore for medical treatment, sir. Our flight of human resource is very painful. Our youngsters, if they were here, would create wonder out of it. I have said out of conviction that New Zealand and Singapore, Italy and France, let us focus on culture. We have best of it. Let us focus on what nature has given us. We are in bountiful measure. Why are we not in a position to exploit the potential? The moment that is done, this state is bound to be at number one. But it can't be governed by optics. Every day you'll find a newspaper. For example, I'll tell you what pain I have. I'll share it with you because I am with people who can be judgmental about me. Mr. Sogat Roy, a distinguished parliamentarian, put on public domain, governor is sending tweet to me against Mamtaji every day. It hit the headlines in the country and outside also. Several of my friends wrote me, we never expected you, that you will act in this demeaning manner. Why are you sending tweets, messages to a distinguished parliamentarian of his party against the chief minister? They sent me letters, mails to me. Fact is, I have not sent a single message. I have written to Sogat Rai, show it. I have indicated what do I do. We have an honorable chief minister who says, I get food every day from Taj Bengal. My wife is such a great cook, sir. I'm a vegetarian, I'm a teetotaler, and I look, what do I do? Therefore, I said, I'm hurt that if one intelligentsia will come to my aid, I will get geometrical support. Sir, right now, diagnose the problem of the state of West Bengal. No one has freedom here. It is a police state. It is a state within a state. Here corruption is rampant. Institutions are den of corruption. Diversion of funds is taking place. There is no accountability, no transparency. I am determined to enforce it because it is my duty. And I will not fail in my duty, sir. I will prosecute it, irrespective of what others do. The moment any one of you will point out that Governor Jagdeep Dhankad, you have made a mistake, sir, I will catch both my ears and be on a correction path. Therefore, sir, your silence, now I'm putting it, sir, your silence will make us absolutely in a state of affairs that will take another few decades to come out of it. In any case, I'm sorry, sir, but I could not help myself because rarely do I get an opportunity to talk to the people who are much wiser than me, who have greater experience than I have, and who would feel about it. They would reflect about it. No institution here is functioning. If a chief minister could go to Nizam Palace, stay there for 8 hours, and says, either release them or arrest me. I had sanctioned arrest of those people. 2 of them were sitting ministers. It was after investigation. Sir, we are in constitutional anarchy at the moment. No doubt about it. And I will do all I can do under my command within my limitations to work and overwork and work overtime to serve the people of state of West Bengal. I hope I meet with some success.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your address and taking on the question answers session. I now request General Johnny Mukherjee, who is the Vice President of Ceners-K, to kindly deliver the concluding remarks and the vote of thanks.
Good evening, Your Excellency, and all of you. It falls on me to give the closing address and also put across the vote of thanks. Your Excellency, Honorable Jagdeep Dhankar, Governor of West Bengal, Air Chief Marshal Arup Raha, former Chief of the Indian Air Force and now President of Ceners-K, members of Ceners-K, guests. Firstly, a word about late Mr. Ranjit Datta, because I have an important point to make here. He was an extremely esteemed and important member of our think tank, Ceners-K. And he was the Vice President Finance of our organization, besides being a very important member of India's oil industry, to the extent of being a minister emeritus in the central government related to oil and in the Assam government. It is, I must say, it is unfortunate. I say this from my heart, not on behalf of Ceners-K. He has not received his due from either the state of Assam or the Indian oil industry or the northeastern oil industry. And we would earnestly request the northeastern oil industry and the state of Assam to partner with us on making this lecture that we are having for the first time today in his honor a regular affair and to partner us with it. That is my humble request to you on behalf of Ceners-K and all of us here. I think it's important because he was a great and very good man. And he did a lot for Assam and the Northeast and the Indian oil industry. However, from our side, we in the Governing Council decided that we would like to honor him by holding this lecture annually on a very important subject. Like today, it was on center-state relations. The topic we had chosen today is a burning topic of public interest over which we frequently see a lot of acrimony and tension. That of center-state relations in India. And who better to talk to us on the matter than His Excellency, our Governor, a former MP, minister, Supreme Court lawyer, an expert, one of the supreme experts on arbitration, and an expert on constitutional matters, including center-state relations. The subject itself is extremely complex and is a subject I am not really qualified to talk on, even though, as with many of us here who were former government servants and armed forces officers, have sworn oaths to uphold the Constitution of India. I will therefore refrain to do anything other than outline the main points of His Excellency's speech. I would, however, like to compliment His Excellency on behalf of all of us for such a brilliant, frank, forthright, and erudite speech. Thank you, sir. We are honored to have you with us and have you talking to us. However, there are many who would not agree with you on some issues, sir. But that is part of dialogue and exchange of views. But once again, thank you, sir. It also falls on me to express a vote of thanks, but before that, I'll quickly run through a summary of points, and I hope I don't miss out the important ones. Here we are. Growing a little old and can't see very clearly, sir. I hope I can read what I've written. The first point was one second, sir. Sorry. Here we are. Mixing up the pages. Yeah. The first point is India is a union of states. And it is important, it is imperative that harmony and partnership be maintained in relations. Secondly, discussion. To ensure that the Constitution functions must be unanimous and harmonious. Niti Aayog, unlike the previous Planning Commission, is a collaborative agency, wherein it is collaborating with the states for planning of work. The framers of the Constitution, whilst they did an excellent job of framing it, did not really conceive or plan for such a situation as is happening today with acrimony between the center and the states, including relationships between the chief minister and the governor. This is unfortunate. The president, whilst bound by the advice of a council of ministers, it is not so in all matters as far as the governor and the state government is concerned. The governor, in many issues, is required to act and is bound by the Constitution and his oath. Relations now between the center and the states have unfortunately become highly politicized, with a lot of confrontational attitudes creeping in. There is a need for reforms to resolve these issues as far as the Constitution is concerned. Then we come on to questions and answers. There's a requirement for an annual conference with all the chief ministers and governors of the entire Union of States to solve issues and to ensure better governance. A lot of criminals have entered into politics and are now actually participating in ruling this country. This needs to be resolved. And you had given a suggestion that as long as candidates are selected properly and blocked from entry if found unsuitable, then that should meet the requirement. The intelligentsia should be more active. Not more active, should be totally active to bring about change and to prevent misrule in the states and the country. They must have the guts to sit up and speak what they feel. Federalism, I had raised the question regarding center-state relations regarding the federal structure being endangered. His Excellency felt that as long as a harmonious relationship is maintained and constitutional norms followed, this should not be the case. A question was also asked regarding legislative councils, which were abolished in many states many years ago. Why, and why should they not be reintroduced? Particularly as they were selected from the intelligentsia to give their views. This needs to be reinstituted. And the last point was really more power needs to be given to the Election Commission to ensure that proper people are elected. The fact remains is the Election Commission already has tremendous powers to do so. No further powers are really required. I think those are most of the points. If there are any points which I had left out, then I'd get in touch with His Excellency's Secretariat and add those on. Is there anything you'd like me to add, sir?
No, it's fine, sir.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to now express a vote of thanks. The first vote of thanks is to His Excellency, the Honorable Jagdeep Dhankar, Governor of Bengal, for an excellent and illuminating talk on center-state relations in India. Thank you very much, sir. We are highly honored to hear your views on the subject. We must also thank Air Chief Marshal Raha for having conceived the topic and made this lecture feasible. Our member and honorary secretary, Brigadier Neelu Mukherjee, has almost single-handedly organized this webinar and virtual talk. He's been assisted by General Shiv Mukherjee, Mr. Mehra for trouble-free digital conduct, and our office superintendent, Mr. Robert Harris. I must, on behalf of all of us, thank you all from the bottom of our hearts for taking all this effort.